Yeah, why not?
Oh my god! I think the theme is technical difficulties and false start.
Is that going on your tombstone now?
Yeah. How you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm good. It's definitely a first world problem that I'm struggling with. You know, it's been hot these last couple of days, man.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you're chilling out, but if you've got stuff to get done, it's a bit of a killer. It's a bit of a killer. But you know, we do live in the UK and more localized Manchester, so it's you know, we don't always get the good weather, so let's enjoy it while we can, sort of situation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I had a conversation this week about the weather in the UK and specifically Manchester.
What, an English person having a conversation about the weather? Get the fuck out.
But I feel like people are very quick to talk about how rubbish it is now it always rains, but I think that's a bit of a myth. Because especially since
it's like a funny bit to lean into, innit?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It's always raining. It's never sunny. Now I think back, I've got a bit of a year-round farmer's tan. I've like.
So yeah, apart from weather talk, what else have you been up to? Have you anything of note?
Yeah. So at the time of recording this, I've just been for my first proper night out since lockdown. You know, we've been lucky enough to meet over the past few weeks when restrictions have eased and we've gone for food. Had some indoor gatherings with limited numbers, which has been nice. But last night was my first proper, full group. A lot of the guys I've known since school, going out to have a drink for someone's birthday and getting food and that sort of stuff. And the topic of conversation, rather than weather, was anxiety, which you know we've spoke about off air, and I think I've always been conscious of when I get anxious, and especially the past few years, like before lockdown even. And it's funny, I think way more people are aware, at least, of either that they've always had anxiety and they've never quite dealt with it or thought about it properly, or kind of just said it out loud to someone and gone, oh yeah, that is a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not just being silly. But also, I think people who probably didn't have it or didn't suffer with it for a long time have as you said, have got a bit of a baseline at least of this is odd.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, mate. I think, you know, we've talked. I say we, I mean the greater we have talked about, like, when are things going to get back to normal? And I think the danger there is that, unfortunately, it was the normal that we lived in before that have resulted in the situation that we're in now. So we can't actually go back to normal. We need without sounding like a cliche thing, we need a new normal. And I think we're all having to accept and get with the idea that there's going to be new base levels for things. And anxiety is one of those things that I don't think has really been talked about as much. And I think people's general base anxiety has definitely risen. I mean, for me, anxiety and nerves are all kind of similar things. You can be, I think nerves can be a result of being anxious and having anxiety, but you can be scared of something and that can be nervous. You can be excited about something and that be nervous.
Yeah.
And I think with the acting that I've done, I've not necessarily mastered my nerves, but I've learnt to control them in order to be able to, you know, bring out a performance.
Yeah.
So I think in the past when I've been nervous about stuff, I've probably hidden my anxiety or kind of written it off a bit and gone, oh no, it's just nerves, you're not worried about it.
Yeah.
But similar to you, like meeting up with people, like that sort of closer contact with people. Like, I've not hugged my mum in a year and a half, like, or since whenever this began, and it felt really odd. Not the hug, but the idea of being able to, you know, the close contact. And I definitely think levels of anxiety is a problem that we're going to have to deal with in this country, and it's coming. It's in the post. And I think it's going to affect more people.
I think as well, not even around, you know, taking the reason for lockdown out of it, taking any nervousness of, like, is it safe to have contact, or, you know, because there's plenty of people who still don't believe any of it, and it's kind of like taking all that side out of it. Like you say, even just not like hugging my mum because are we both not ill now? We're both vaccinated, so it's fine. Not even that. Just the idea of like, is this weird? Is this silly? And it's a shame, isn't it? Because just simple things of hugging family or hugging your mates, or shaking hands. Even obviously that's like
someone being in your house, not even touching you, just being in your house, and it's like, whoa, that's very weird. These four walls have been like just us two for ages, and now there's extra people in. It's
that warm blanket of just staying in all the time and watching films and ordering nice takeaway. It's the minute that's lifted, you're like, oh, it's chilly out here in the real world. Yes, it's like you say. I think getting back to normal, I think it's more of a new normal for a lot of people rather than going back to how it was. Like you say, purely for I do think there's been conversations over the past few years, again before lockdown, around mental health being a lot more public. So it's,
or at least the idea of starting to talk about it,
not dismissing
being public, but trying to encourage that.
And just letting people know, like, the biggest thing with anxiety, depression, anything to do with your mental health, there's always that thing that people think it's only them feeling it or struggling, and again not reaching out. When you could just say to your mate, oh, can I just talk to you about something? And half the time you say it out loud and you go, oh, it's instantly nowhere near as big as it was. Like that's my big thing a lot of the time.
Yeah. Or you find out the person you're talking to goes, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Not
they go,
exactly
you're right.
They
go, I get why you're anxious. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I get it. I would feel the same, or I do feel the same. And you go, oh, cool, okay. So it's not wrong to, because that's the other side. Like you talking about nerves before. Sometimes that can be quite a useful tool. It's natural. It's that fight or flight response. It's how you manage that and use it.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, I want to avoid feeling anxious, or I want to avoid, feeling grief about something. It's like, no, that these are all emotions. It's that's a dangerous way to try and, I was going to say deal with something, but not deal with it. That's equally as dangerous. Because it's going to pop up in some other way, either directly or it'll be a contributing factor to possibly the downfall of something else, or or a particular thing not working out for you because you've not dealt with certain things. And we've not been around a lot of people for coming up to more than 18 months now, so we've got to get used to or start just going, yeah, right, mate, but actually kind of meaning it, not just as a way to say hello. Yeah, not as a pleasantry, but an actual question. That's funny enough. That's something that, again, I've worked on, and this has been quite a good test of it. Of not saying to somebody how you doing, and kind of just brushing over whatever they say and going straight into like the greeting, but actually, if they don't answer, waiting for them to answer, and then they go like, "Oh no, I'm good," and you go, "Oh, good, yeah," rather than just going, "How you doing, mate? Yeah, good to see you," and just. The question's almost a statement, or almost a way of just saying hello, rather than, no, what are you doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a funny one. But by the way, we're not doctors. This is all on personal experience and personal opinions and feelings. But I have seen people quick to criticise anybody talking about stuff like that as well, which you still see little bits of. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it, No. We're not saying these are things you need to do to sort out your mental health. These are just experiences we have, and there's certain things that we've done and tried which seem to work, which hopefully helps others. We'll see. I think it's quite nice to see that mental health is starting to become as important as physical now, because they're so linked. It's all. You've got a physical ailment and you're not in a good mental space. It's going to take longer to sort you physically out because you're not in a good place for it. And and equally, if you're in bed with with X, Y, or Z physical problem, your mental health is going to deteriorate because of that. So to try and treat them as separate things seems a bit silly now. Yeah, seems a bit obvious, doesn't it? In a way that they are. It's all one big thing. I've got a mate. Actually, I've got two mates. They're a couple, and one of them, like, was great when they were off a furlough. Just
it was a great time. They got loads of stuff done, loads of creative things done that they wanted to do. Really sort of excelled in that, being away from not just work, but away from sort of society and just being in amongst their own stuff. Their other half, however, they'll admit themselves, went a little bit stir crazy by the end. Got made redundant partway through furlough. Got another job. Started at that job, and that structure and needing to do things that are outside of your family, your relationship, your immediate sort of bubble. They said, it was great. It was like a lifeline. Like I benefited so much from it, and it basically just comes down to, I think, that everybody is an individual, and something that works for somebody else could actually be the worst thing for the person next to him, and vice versa.
There's lots of ways, but all in all, it's nice that society is another little step closer to being, if not the same as before, at least more normal, or a bit more open and a bit more safe, and more opportunities for people, I guess. Yeah,
definitely.
We should do a weekly anxiety dropping on the pod. Like, what are you anxious about this week, Charlie? Like, more technical difficulties.
Well, I mean, we're trying to keep the pod to under an hour, so you've just.
Yeah, good point. Let's let's jump in with our second watch along.
Yeah, with DRH. I challenged you the first time to watch it, and this is kind of sprung up out of a little bit of I wanted Lewis to watch a film that popped up, and I was like, oh yes, definitely want to watch this. See if Lewis will want to watch it. I'm not going to watch it until he's watched it. And it was like, well, if anyone who listens or watches the pod wants to, watch it as well, it could be quite a nice thing that rather than us talking about the things that we've just been doing that week with no sort of preface before the episode for anyone who's tuning in, that you can watch it, or we want to get to a point where possibly we're reading stuff or we're playing stuff as well. We might not get there, we might get there, but whatever. So yeah, with DRH, and you, I mean, I think challenge sounds a bit too aggressive, doesn't it? But
yeah, I think it started as the challenge, and I think we're basically just calling it because it's not even a recommendation, because a lot of these films, I say a lot of them, we're only too deep, but the things we're thinking about making a point of watching, we've probably both already seen, or at least it's so in the zeitgeist that we know enough. And I think it's more, I think, like you say, it's almost some of the stuff I want to recommend when it feels right. It's more, it's quite an underrated film. It's kind of
like, fallen off the boil a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, might be a misunderstood. It might be a cult classic. It might be a really divisive film, or it might just be something that I think we've got something interesting to say about it.
Yeah.
Or like you say, it might just be something really good that you've not thought about for ages pops up. You're on Netflix or whatever streaming app you happen to use, and They Live thumbnail pops up, and you think, we've spoke about this at some point in the past few years, randomly. Let's actually watch it and talk about it properly.
I like to think that, years ago I thought I was a unique little snowflake, and that, but it turns out, like, how many people have seen, like, It Lives, They Live pop up and gone, I want to see that. So you know what? Let's all watch it and chat about it. So you challenged, I'm just going to go with that word, to Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
So talk me through why you thought Starship Troopers. What was the reason behind that pick?
So we've spoke separately recently about Total Recall. I have watched a few Paul Verhoeven films in the past year in lockdown, and he actually touches on two of the things I mentioned before. He can be quite divisive, and some of the films you could argue it leans into the so bad it's good, and it had certain similarities with They Live in that way, where I think it's quite misunderstood. I think there's a lot of people who go, I just don't get it. It's not. It's odd. The pacing's odd. Talking about They Live in this instance, and for Starship Troopers, a lot of people watch it and go, "Oh, it's just like a over the top military sci-fi," and it's really. It almost feels like pro-fascist. It's weird, and people really miss the point of watch any Paul Verhoeven film. It's meant to seem that way. He's making a comment on totalitarian governments. He's making a comment on propaganda. The whole film is structured like a propaganda film, and it contains propaganda films. So there's something really interesting about something that is making choices very intentionally, and yet 90% of people seem to go, "Oh, it's over the top and gratuitous." It's like, that's the point. he's making a comment, and I think a lot of people who this isn't everyone, but I've had conversations over the years with people who didn't like it, and when they've said why, I'm like, "Oh, you just didn't get it." That's not me being like a snob or being, harsh about it, but they just didn't get it, and it's like it's a shame, because if you just scratch that surface, and it's not I don't think it's that layered. I think it's quite on the nose with especially the propaganda film stuff. It's really saying like, this isn't good, guys. But people think, oh god, it's so pro-military and pro-fascist.
When did it come out? Let me just
96, 97, same year as Titanic.
97.
Same year as one of the biggest films ever.
Wow. So I was quite young when it came out, and I loved it when it came out. But I don't think I was actually the target audience, because all that sort of, all the stuff you've literally just mentioned completely washed over me as a kid. Yeah. Like I think when you're young, you have an ability that you lose as an adult to edit in real time, edit things out. Like when you watch a Disney film and there's like an adult joke in it, as a kid you don't even hear it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or like you say something that's a bit strange as a child, and the adults start laughing at you. You just edit it straight out. So all the propaganda sort of like, would you like to know more? I didn't edit seeing it out of my viewing of it, but I never questioned it. I was just like, all right, okay, that's the thing in it. Move on.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was like big dudes running around with guns, boobs, space, shooting aliens. I was like,
best film ever.
Yeah. Just all the time. I mean, I'll be honest, when you challenged me to it and I sat down to watch it, and I was like, 2 hours?
Yeah.
It's always been 2 hours. I was imagining like an hour 20. Like, I thought this is going to be one of those, they sign up, they go to war, there's a little bit at the end, hour and 20, we're done. Nah, man. 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 hours of my life. 2 hours.
See, you didn't blindly love it then? On the repeat view.
I think the love that I had for it when I was a kid, it was... the film's not changed, obviously. Yeah. I've changed my viewing of it. And I think certain things that I would zoom in on any property, as an adult, they're not the things that really matter for me anymore. Yeah. Like I came away from it. Denise Richards, regardless of what you think about her acting or whatever, she was massive. Like, she was in the Bond film, and like she was huge, a massive pin-up. But Carmen, her character, she's a bitch. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. And I never saw that when I was a kid, but I came away from it going like, I'm not equating Starship Troopers to Romeo and Juliet, a Shakespearean classic. But I have studied like Shakespeare when I was in school. Like Romeo and Juliet, it was one of our GCSE topics or within English. And then I've studied from sort of technical, from the written word sort of side of it, and then I studied it on the flip side as a play and performed it. And it's pretty much, people talk about it being a love story, and it's really much more of a lust story. These kids, they're children in Romeo and Juliet, and it's lust. And you could say that if they both hadn't have died at the end, spoiler, Sorry. Would their lust have carried on any further than that?
Yeah,
because it's basically the modern day version is guy sees girl, thinks she's fit, girl sees guy, thinks he's fit, and that's literally what it is. Not taking anything away from like the story of it. It's still a great story. But there's certain elements in Starship Troopers with Rico and Dizzy and Carmen where it's all very. I mean, it's all very high school, despite they look like they're in the mid-30s to 40s in secondary school, saying, Rico, you're 17. Mate, you've got... I can see the hair growing on your face during the scene.
Yeah.
But apart from that, and then like even later on when Dizzy is in Rico's arms and she goes, oh, I finally got to... Did she say have you? Which makes it sound way more sexual, but I don't think in that moment she means that. Again, it's like that is such a you're dying, love, and your mindset is still, oh, I got to be with the hunky jock of high school. It's like you're dying on the battlefield here, like.
Yeah. To be fair,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but what I do like about the film, it will lean into those cheesy commercial things of an action film or a love story or whatever, but then instantly they'll go to, don't let me go, I don't want to die, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, we're back in reality, this is what it's really like.
That wasn't a criticism of it.
It
was just like, it's almost like, just because they're kids signing up to go to war, that when they go to war, they're still kids, they're just doing an adult thing. And I'm pretty sure there was 2 massive world war events where something like that kind of happened.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the sort of the nuance that you were talking about at the beginning of this episode, where that stuff's all missed because there's a big scary bug monster, and it's like no, we had children fighting war. And then right at the end when Rico gets the new influx of soldiers, and they're purposely cast super young looking kids, and I definitely thought, I definitely made this up, but I definitely thought watching it that Rico turns around to Ace and goes, did we used to look like that? But it's not in the film. But I definitely made up that line in my head.
That'd be nice, though. That'd be a nice little...
I just mentioned Ace, played by, is it Jake Busey?
Jake Busey, yeah, Gary's son.
You know what? He has got... They needed more of him in that film because I think he's really good. He starts out and he first comes in and he's a bellend.
Yeah.
And he's a bellend all the way through it. And then when Carmen dumps him, he could have been a bellend. And he doesn't change his character. He doesn't say to Rico, oh, let's be best mates and all that. He just sees a human being who's fucking gutted. And he just says... it's something like they're beautiful until they rip your heart out or something, and kind of consoles him a little bit without going, oh, we're all really good mates. I'm still that dickhead, but you know what? I'm sorry, mate. I'm a dickhead, and I don't particularly like you, but that's shit. Sorry.
It's
a great little bit.
Yeah, I really like that. It feels. There's only 1 or 2 moments of humanity in the film, of non-propaganda, non-shallow, and that's on those moments where you go, oh, there's someone with a personality and with feelings. But like you say, he doesn't suddenly become the ultimate sensitive guy. In his own way, he's a bit douchey, but he still comforts Rico and he's still there for him. It's like I'm a bit bravado and a bit over the top, but in the moment that you're down, I'll help pick you up. It's actually it's like a really nice. It
is a really good moment, and he smashes it. He does it. He plays it really well, because it wasn't like a shock moment when he says it and you go, oh my god, he's a douchebag with a heart. It's like, but you just got another bit of his, the layered character that I'd like to think is the actor, that he's not going in going, oh, I've just got this line to say and I'll just make it work. It's like no. For your character, you need to make sure that however you've stacked your character build, that every line you say makes sense because of something that you've made, and when he does that, it's like, oh, that's quite nice. And he actually has quite a good, interesting character arc, how he goes in wanting to be the squad leader, and then by the end he's like, I am way out of my depth here, mate. I'll be a soldier, and I'll be the soldier that you need me to be, but I am. He freezes on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And then so he doesn't become the squad leader. He then, because Rico fucks up, He then becomes a squad leader, freezes on the battlefield, and then later on goes, I'm capable of doing the shooting bit, but I can't have any of that.
I think when Rico gets promoted, he literally says to him, I need a new squad leader, and he says like, oh, I've tried it and failed. I just want to fight and make a difference. And it's like, cool, bit of honesty, yeah. Like, yeah.
But then in a weird way, he then turns to Dizzy, who's stood right next to him, and goes,
how about it?
And she goes, all right, great, nice one. And I was like, wait, she's not going to pull him and go, what, second choice? Like, am I not?
It's an intro. It is, and so talking of Dizzy, so there's a the love cube, the love square, not even triangle, between Rico, Carmen, Dizzy, and I think he's like a flight commander or something, who Carmen starts to sort of go away with. I mean, she's flirting with him in front of her boyfriend at one point in the film, which again, she's such an unlikable character, and again, intentionally
such a bitch.
Like, Red Letter Media do a really good review on, not that they need us to plug them, but a review of this film, and they talk about they talk about how it starts as like Beverly Hills 90210. Everything's like evenly lit, really bland, really popping like a cheap TV show, and you're like, and again, some people criticize it like, oh, it looks so flat, and it's like, yeah, they're saying this is what, you know, these are kids, these are naive kids in like in the fun years, and they're being, it's funny, like, convinced to join up.
When I was doing like a little bit of, not research, but I like to have some sort of, like, if it's just IMDb up next to me when I'm watching a film, it's not for every film, but when I know we're going to be wanting to talk about it, or I start watching something and go, oh, this is actually, I've got something to say about this. I'll start getting just little notes out so I can, so I don't have to try and remember it, so I don't have to take myself out of the experience so much. I can just put a note down and I'll say, I'll come back to that later. But when it was 1997, I was like, it feels a lot earlier than 97. Like it felt not 80s, because I think we all had this weird, 80s was all, we've talked about in the pod before, like, you know, neon, like, gym gear and stuff, and it's like, it wasn't. But it definitely felt a lot closer to the late 80s, early 90s than it did, like, 3 years before the millennium. Like, that was... Yeah. But, I mean, I suppose it could have been a choice. It does suffer a little bit of... And I've said this about Star Wars as well, which is one of the reasons why I like the new Star Wars films, is that suddenly people who aren't a Skywalker or a Solo matter in the universe. I mean, it's still all, you know, human people. Yeah. If they are human. There's no, like, alien species that's suddenly, you know, really important on the side of good. So I think... that's what I like about the new Star Wars films, and especially The Mandalorian, where you're like, this guy doesn't give a flying fuck he doesn't even know who Skywalker is. He definitely doesn't know who any of the Solos are. You know, but Starship Troopers definitely does, like, oh, we're like at the end of high school, and Neil Patrick Harris's character says, oh, we're never going to see each other. We're never going to see each other again. We'll be millions and billions of miles away from each other. You know, yeah, of course, we'll all be friends. And it's like, but you definitely bump into them multiple times. Like, Carmen bumps into Rico, coincidentally.
It's almost like they're the only pilot and soldier.
Yeah,
like in this force of hundreds of thousands of soldiers.
Oh, Rico, Dizzy, your whole squad's dead. You're gonna have to be reassigned. Who's in charge of that squad? Your old teacher from school. That's
a great reveal, though. I love that. I absolutely love it. For me, that's actually, again, part of that commentary of, there's this society that's like a conveyor belt of veterans, new recruits. Like, every adult or every position of authority or figure is like a veteran, is scarred, they have limbs missing, but they're all so bought into it.
Yeah,
just blindly. Like the perfect example of where people really miss the point of this film, and it's very obviously meant to be tongue-in-cheek or at least making a comment, is when Rico goes to sign up and he says, "Oh, Mobile Infantry, well done, son. This made me the man I am today." And he's got a robotic limb arm shaking his hand. pulls away from the desk and he's lost both of his legs. And I've seen some people go like, oh, it's trying to make a joke of like this. It's like, no, it's making a comment of this guy's basically saying, you know, you will be like me and really proud. And I'm not to say that if you're a veteran you shouldn't be, but it's making a comment to say this is the reality of what can happen. And especially in the type of war that the soldiers will likely end up going into, which they do with these bugs. It's like giant creatures that can just get your limbs off easily, and it's very. It's very on the fact that people don't get it is astounds me, because I'm like,
it's funny that,
right
like,
there.
When you said like people,
they're
making a joke of disabilities, like I did not read it like that at all. I definitely think they're making a joke, but they're using the joke to pull your focus onto a reality of what could happen. Would you like to know more? Good, because it's a part 2, and I've used the line from the film. You know, the "Would you like to know more" bit.
You clever, you Charlie.
I tell you what, I'm making this up on the fly, mate. Yeah, so it turned out to be quite. This periodically happens with our podcast. It's turned out to be a longer episode than I think either of us had planned. So
a much deeper rabbit hole than we planned to go down.
I feel like we've only got ourselves to blame, because this is the premise that we set up with our podcast. So we're the baddies in this scenario, and I'm fine with it. Part 2 of Starship Troopers, I think we kick off talking more about specific performances and characters, some proper little gems in it, good character actors in this film.
Good actors, doing good acting.
Tell you what, Lewis, you're not wrong, mate. You are not wrong.
Reference City, this.
Yeah, this is just referencing ourselves.
Anything you'd like to add, Charlie?
Yeah, guys, remember, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Bye. Oh shit, John, it's a part 2.
That's got to stay on the end. All the grace of an elephant.